Hello, welcome back to Education System Reboot. Hopefully this will be a short video because I want to do a quick book review on Atomic Habits by James Clear. I read it over Thanksgiving break, and I have to say it is a fantastic book. Let me tie it into some of the other things. Like I'll tie it in first. I've done one other book review, and it was on the compound effect and also a John Maxwell 101 collection. So I want to use those as a reference. I feel like Atomic Habits is a slightly better repackaging and slightly better systematic approach for what the compound effect kind of did. So before I dive into the book, I'm just going to say this. My recommendation, depending on your personality, is if you appreciate a little bit more kind of kick in the pants, like I'm going to punch you in the gut type of thing to kind of convict you of your habits, I would highly recommend the compound effect first. It's a little bit more kind of in your face, straightforward. But if I'm being honest, now that I've read this, I think Atomic Habits does a much better job of sequencing in terms of giving a more structured approach on how you can overcome habits. But with that said, they both have a very similar philosophy and similar approach. And so I guess I just would want to say, highly recommend both. Anyway, so what I want to do, first of all, I also did something, just again, a side note is I feel like I marked and took notes in the book, the best I've ever done. I'm getting better at the system of how I want to read books and remember. So I used kind of a tab method where I used a lot of tabs, which allowed me right before this video to go back and just kind of skim through it real quick to remind myself some stuff. And then because I could go through it quickly, so what I did is I put just some paper to bookmark a few spots that I'm going to focus in on this video. So the first thing I'm just going to, again, quickly talk about is his system is very simple. He talks about 4 laws. And I'm just going, again, you have to read the book to get the details, but it's very simple. It's make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And so early in the book, he kind of talks about what he calls the feedback loop of habits, which I think is very important to kind of understand. And then throughout the book, he takes you systematically through how to kind of go through these 4 laws. And so, like I said, if you're systematic the way I am and you kind of like that approach, I think you'll find this book amazingly insightful. So what I'd like to do now is I'm just going to share a few kind of insight quotes. Some of them will be very short. And so that's, again, so my first thing here that I marked is this, and I'm really just going to read one, just a couple sentences. Okay. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. You get what you repeat. So I remember, number one, when I first read that, I highlighted it, I marked it. I'm like, oh boy. But I think it's very true. And I think all of our successes can be tied down to our habits, and so can our failures. And I think that perfectly illustrates something I've been trying to say, or I have been saying a lot in my teaching lately, is we are the sum total of our habits. And so when I read that, it kind of reinforced that natural inclination. The next one is, again, this is a quote I've heard several times. Now I know it's from this book. But again, very just powerful quote. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Now, I bring that one up because, in essence, that's what my channel is about, system reboot. I think we can improve the system. As we improve the system, we can improve those goals. We can improve our outcomes. But I think our system is broken. And the whole point of this channel is to offer some insights, some thoughts, some ideas about how we can improve that. This one, again, this is just more of a personal thing, and it's very short. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. So one section of the book that I just thought was really interesting is, he talks about our environment and how it subtly enhances or detracts from our goals, and, setting ourselves up for success in our environment. In the video he talked about the living room. It's set up to face the TV, so no wonder we watch so much TV. And it got me really thinking a lot more about what little changes I can do personally in my own environment. And I can safely say I have been making many steps towards that, but it's a slow process. I mean, full confession, I Netflix binged yesterday, but I chose to do that because I also have put I put a little divider in front of my TV to kind of remind me that if I truly want to choose to watch TV, I've got to move it. I've got to take an extra step. I'm even considering taking the batteries out of my remote as a secondary thing. But anyway, your environment shapes you. All right, I've got two more here. This one is just actually a section. There was in the span of 2 pages. He basically had a couple quotes, and those quotes perfectly aligned with some conclusions I'd come to. So again, I just quoted the idea of saying we're the sum total of our habits. And he had a quote, "We are limited by where our habits lead us," which again, when I read that, I was like, well, that's another way of saying the sum total of our habits. This one isn't something I thought of, but habits are the entry point, not the end point. The idea is the entry point to the habit, the entry point to making progress. It's the habits that we do. I've also been very fond of saying, I think I made a video about this, but called "Simple But Not Easy." And here was a quote in the same page that I found the other one. "You'll find that nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version." And when I read that, I was like, well, yeah, it's simple. Like he goes through this process of saying you can start a habit in 2 minutes. It's not the actual habit. It's the what can you do in 2 minutes, which it's getting started. He talked about that. But I thought that's kind of another way of saying that because it's simple but not easy. It can be a very simple process, a 2-minute process, but it still might not be easy. So I just thought that was interesting. And then I also, again, I made a video called "Habit First, Quality Later." And this was literally the next page. So all 3 of these were on the same page. That's why I just wanted to share this personally, because I found it profound that conclusions I've been coming to from my reading and my personal growth are what other reputable people or experts in this field are coming to. So it says, "The point is to master the habit of showing up. The truth is, a habit must be established before it can be improved." And I wrote a note. I was like, well, that's habit first, quality later. And then he actually, in the next page, he says it even better. And this, by far, is going to be one of my favorite quotes of all time. He says this, and I love this: "You have to standardize before you can optimize." I'm going to say that one more time. You have to standardize before you can optimize. And I just think that's you've got to create the system, get in the routine, get the habit going, quality or habit first, right? And then you can optimize it. You can improve the quality, right? So habit first, quality later. Anyway, so I was so motivated when I read that. And then finally, there was a quote, and this one will be probably my biggest quote, biggest passage, but this one is directly tied into this channel, the idea of education. So let me just scan this real quick. Okay, so I'm going to read this. "We teach for standardized tests instead of emphasizing learning, curiosity, and critical thinking. In short, we optimize for what we measure. When we choose the wrong measurement, we get the wrong behavior." And then some more things. "When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Each number is simply one piece of feedback in the overall system. In our data-driven world, we tend to overvalue numbers and undervalue anything," I don't know this word, ephemeral, I hope I said that right, "soft and difficult to quantify." I'm going to pause there. In a weird way, that is exactly a summary of why I'm doing this channel. I love data. I love it, but I don't trust it as much as I trust my ability to be insightful and observe and find conclusions kind of in my own analytical brain. Numbers are great. Data is great. But I kind of feel very strongly that we kind of might be in an overly data-driven world, especially in education system. And when I have conversations with lots of other teachers, we constantly are talking about those unmeasurable things. And I feel like what this book and what that last passage really emphasizes is that if we truly want to change the education system for the better, we have to be willing to throw out the data a little bit. I'm not saying ignore it, of course not. But our intuition, our gut, can actually give us, I think, more valuable feedback at time. And my gut, again, this is why I'm making this, my gut says we need to double down and go back to success principles, to habit, to effort, to valuing those things over the metrics of the test. Because just like in music, as I'll tie it in with this, you're going to fail more times than you succeed in music, because that's the process of practicing. But if you master the process of practicing, you will then be able to attain higher and higher of levels of performance in music or athletics or whatever every time you step up onto that field. So in education terms, that means every time they come to a test. But we overvalue that test moment, and kids don't have the habits to study. And again, like I said, I think this book, although it's talking about personal habits and personal growth and how we can optimize our life, I think there is an extremely valuable analogy to this book for the education system. So anyway, absolutely recommend The Atomic Habit. Because it was Thanksgiving, I was able to get through it pretty quickly. It's not a hard read, but it's not an easy read. And what I mean by that is, I would say The Compound Effect can be read a little bit faster than this. I think you have to pay attention a little bit more. So it depends on where you are in your life and what you want. But like I said, cannot recommend this book enough. I will be rereading it probably often, maybe once a year. Who knows? I might read it again here soon, because I want to internalize this stuff. I want to know. I want to find my system. And it was just such a great book. So anyway, just that friendly reminder, consistent effort over time equals success. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.